Would it be all right to touch base on why you and Billy White originally left Watchtower?
Of course. I think it's almost the same reason. There was no animosity or anything. It wasn't, you know, any weird situation or, you could say musical differences, but that's such a cliche. Billy wanted to play different kinds of music. He is a superb master guitar player. As a matter of fact, he lives in Mexico now and has for many, many years, and now plays flamenco guitar. He plays these handmade, catgut guitars and is tremendously talented on it. And has a new record out called Dharma Blanco that you can buy on iTunes. And it's incredible. It's beautiful music. And he does all the instrumentation, he plays all the instruments. Uh, he just wanted to play different styles of music. That's really what it is. And he left in '86. Um, Ron Jarzombek, his replacement, joined in January of '87. I started doing Dangerous Toys as just a fun side project. It was not a serious band. We were doing cover songs and stuff. It was not to be a serious thing. And then, boom, wouldn't you know, somebody wanted to sign the band. And it was like I had only been doing it for a handful of months.
Uh-huh.
And we had a handful of original material, Dangerous Toys. And there was a bidding war going on. And I'm not going to stop, a bidding war because over something like that, because I had never really done any real touring. I had never really I didn't have any accolades other than I had a chance to write my own music. In Watchtower, I never wrote anything. I got to write the melody lines, but the lyrics and the riffs were never mine in Watchtower because it was a set thing, and I was loyal to that, to the sound of Watchtower, and I wanted it to be what those guys created, and it still is. But having a chance to write your own music and show your own stuff, even though it was a completely different style of metal or rock and roll, uh, I had a chance to do some things that I hadn't done yet, so I took it. Um, and it was weird because it was right at a time that Watchtower was at a peak of momentum where there were labels interested, and then I had this new thing that where all these major labels were interested, so it was really a hard time, and a lot of fans, a lot of Watchtower fans took it really hard and had no idea what I was getting myself into. How could you do this to me? They felt like I'd stabbed them in the back or something. It was really dramatic and personally upsetting that people took it so hard. And it was hard for me to leave that family that I'd been doing for 7 or 8 years, And, there's parts of me are glad that I did it because, I got to do a lot of cool things and actually meet pen pals that I was writing to for years and years and years in the Watchtower camp. I got to meet them face to face as to where I was, who knows if I would have ever gotten to meet them if I would have stayed with Watchtower. It all turns into, to just balances. And I took a chance, and I think it worked out really well because ultimately I got to work with Watchtower again, and probably never say never. I probably will again, hopefully.
So let's talk about the reunion in 2000. There was a Watchtower reunion show here in Austin, attended by the late great Chuck Schuldiner of Death and Control Denied fame shortly before his unfortunate death. How will you always remember Chuck? He was obviously a huge fan of you guys to travel all the way from Florida for the gig. Did you guys correspond at all?
Um, yeah, Death would come through, and I'd go to the shows, and we were once again more telephone friends than we were pen pals, but he was always such a big fan and loved my vocals and loved Watchtower. On the reissue of the vinyl and the CD, I believe, of Spiritual Healing, it's a gatefold, and you open up this gatefold, and Chuck Schuldiner is going like this, and he's wearing a Watchtower shirt. it's the coolest thing. It's like that's the coolest thing I could ever think of. Um, how many bands can say that? That a death metal god is wearing your band's shirt on the reissue of one of his famed releases. Yeah, Chuck was an awesome guy, and forever in my heart. He those were the last two shows that he came. He came to the San Antonio show and the Austin show. Someone who was instrumental in helping him get down there. He had some of his Control Denied guys with him. But there was a girl from Boston, Natalie Vlahovic, I think as I'm saying her name correctly. She deserves credit in talking Chuck into, hey man, you guys need to come down here. I'll help you however I can. I know you're not feeling well, yada yada yada. I think that she really was instrumental in getting Chuck and some of his guys to come down to Texas and hang out. And that was just a great time because it was a reunion. I mean, I hadn't worked with Watchtower in 13 years, and everyone was really excited about it. And we had gotten booked. The reason for those reunion shows locally here were They were warm up dates for the Bang Your Head festival that we were booked for in 2000 in Balingen, Germany. And yeah, that was an incredible moment. But yeah, just see, funny thing is Chuck was a big Dangerous Toys fan as well. Loved the first record, and when the Toys would go through Florida, he was always at the shows, and very responsive and just very very nice. And he's definitely missed, but probably the biggest Watchtower fan we ever knew. Guy was all over it, loved it, and I think that it influenced his singing and his guitar playing. If you listen to the early death material, it's basically just like black metal. It's death metal. It's dirgy and gargly and exactly what you love about black and death metal. But then you listen through the years, and the more he learned how to use his voice and how to play guitar, it became more and more technical and fucked up, you know what I mean? And his vocal range became amazing, and he was able to create all these different voices and stuff. I think that he would always ultimately wanted to do since the beginning, as well as it just developed into this like progressive black dark metal. And I think that in turn, as Watchtower influences that influences another, and that influences another, and that helped create what is now the subgenres that are way too out of control for me to even keep up with nowadays. So I remember back in the day when I used to be able to name 200 heavy metal bands and not 201 heavy metal bands because there fucking weren't any.
So moving along to Dangerous Toys, the self-titled was released through Columbia Records in 1989 and included the hit singles Teasin' and Pleasin' and Scared. What was it like for you at that time to have major label backing and work with a producer like Max Norman?
It was one big wow. It was exciting to work with someone who had worked with your idols, because he had done, the Randy Rhoads Ozzy material. He recorded the first two, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman with Randy Rhoads. So we got to, we were basically living with Max for, 3 or 4 months, and got to hear tons of Randy Rhoads stories, and it was great to work with Max, just for all of the reasons. If you just Google Max Norman, you'll learn a lot, and he's done a lot of stuff. He did a lot of good Megadeth albums, and anyway, the budget was completely retarded. I learned so much about the music business and the major label recording business. Spending millions of dollars on what you can spend thousands of dollars doing with technology now. But even back then, it was completely retarded what they were charging hourly at studios. Um, Making a video, like a promo clip for a single off of your record. The Tease and Pleasin' video cost, I think that we were budgeted at like $80,000, and we spent like $100,000 making it. And that's recoupable money. Like you have to pay that back with record sales. So once you learn that word recoupable, it's like you're paying a loan to the bank for something they hired. They're telling you to, okay, we have this video and this video and this video we want you to make, and it's all in your contract, and here's the budget we're going to give you for this video and this video and this video. And it's okay if you come under or over. If you come under the budget that they give you, you don't keep that money. It's just less money you have to pay back. So you're learning all of these kinds of things. If you go over budget, you have to pay that money back, but there's not like they don't overcharge you like oh, you went over budget, so we have to add this fee. It's not like being late on the rent or something like that. It was completely retarded on the money that was being spent on silly things like catering for the video shoot, hair and makeup and crap like that. It's like, we're a bunch of dirty Texas rock and roll people, and I can buy some eyeliner and some base and cover up my zits for the day. I don't need this makeup artist who's probably making $200 an hour to just cover up my zits and blow dry my hair for me. You know what I mean? It was stupid. It was, but you learn that. There's only one way to learn that, and that's go do it. And it all also turned into you end up wearing a costume, just mentally, because if you go talk to your management and you say, why are we spending all this money? We don't have to spend this money. And it's like, hey, it's already budgeted in this. It's a done deal. You signed the contract. It's and it's that kind of a thing. There's not really any room for backpedaling, as opposed to now, your label wants you to not spend their money because they don't have any. Nobody has any money, and unless you're on the biggest label in the world, or you own your label, like the biggest bands in the world, have just carte blanche because they've made so much money and they're a brand name and a product. Everything is Target and Walmart and things like that now. It has nothing to do with any sort of underground, or people aren't paying attention to that. Spending money anymore, because there's not any money to spend. So, interesting learning experience being on a major label with plenty of tour support and backing and things like that. I had a great time. I stayed in some real nice hotels. I ate some good food. I rubbed elbows with my idols, and coming back into the do-it-yourself world, which is what Watchtower started out as. It's more of like the punk rock or the Seattle movement, rather, in the 90s, about where a lot of those bands were real anti-establishment, just like the punk movement and early metal movement was seriously anti-establishment and totally do-it-yourself, and in charge of their own thing. And that's kind of where a lot of it's all ended up. That's kind of where it is right now. But it was a good time recording and writing and working on a different scale.
So in 1991, you toured in support of the Hellacious Acres album, opening for an all-star lineup that consisted of Judas Priest, Alice Cooper, Motorhead. What are your memories from that tour? Was there a lot of interaction between Dangerous Toys and your touring mates?
Yeah, somewhat. Lemmy talks about it in his book, White Line Fever. He mentions he's derogatory, but he's not specific strangle. You know what I mean? He's not. But he says, there were things about the tour. He's saying in his book that there were things about the tour that were unsettling. He mentions that when he does talk about Dangerous Toys, he says, they were obviously the apple of Sony's eye because the singer who had red hair and sang everything in falsetto, he's making a Guns N' Roses comparison there because that was, in 91, Guns N' Roses were blowing up and it was a big deal. And I do have red hair tattoos and I do sing real high, so there was the axle stab there, and that's okay. He was talking from a business standpoint, and I get that, and I took the punches because Lemmy is a very intelligent, classic gentleman, and was very, very nice. I don't think that he likes my music very much, but it's not about that. I could care less. He gave us respect and he treated us like people, and it was always cool. He says something else funny in his book. He says, so we'd only play like 3 or 4 nights a week. So there would be at least 2 to 3 days off per week, and they were usually on Sundays and Mondays or whatever like that. And he mentioned that so we'd go to strip clubs and there the Toys guys would be. You know what I mean? He says that in the book, so that's very rock and roll, and kind of makes up for the stab about my singing and my hair color. So, but it was great to be able to have conversations with Glenn Tipton and KK Downing and Rob Halford almost on a daily basis, and just go, wow, I'm hanging out with Rob Halford right now. That's pretty cool, and very much an experience. And just as a fan, forget if I just pretend that I wasn't a musician and I was just a fan, which I am. I'm a fan long before I'm anything else. It was just cool to be there and see my favorite bands, my idols, play every night.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of people view the Dangerous Toys albums, Pissed and the artist formerly known as, to be darker in nature and more aggressive than previous records. Do you agree with that assessment, and what would you personally attribute to the shift in direction?
I think that the influence of, as they called in the 90s, teen angst, and a slang that come up with, it's bad media slang, that probably someone at Rolling Stone magazine came up with. It's the word grunge. The Seattle movement bands, they're influenced by Kiss and AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, just like all the heavy metal bands are. They may come. A lot of them were playing sort of punk rock style stuff, or what was then known as alternative music. I remember when in the 80s when they were calling REM and U2, they were calling them alternative. And look, those are pop bands. Those are pop rock bands. And it's interesting how the media can just kind of, like make you turn right when last week you were turning left. And just automatically go into this. Oh, I'm into the new thing. It's called grunge, and it's like turns into a new fashion or a fad or something. When these bands are ultimately just playing rock and roll. So when the dollar bill shifted, because the wind blows, and if it blows the dollar bill a certain way, all the other people, oh, this is what's cool now, so I'm going to go this way. Dangerous Toys, among many other bands, tried to stay the course as much as possible. If you're a rock and roll band, you're going to play rock and roll. If you stay with it as much as you can. I think that the Pissed album has a couple of drop D songs on it. It's a little darker, a little heavier, but it's not anything different than any rock and roll record. I think that we were just writing for where we were as people at the time. We were just writing what was coming out. We weren't saying, oh, this is no good. We were saying, wow, this is cool, and getting excited about a song because it still sounded like Dangerous Toys to us. Now, as far as the artist formerly known as, that record, we had lost original members. Paul Idell was in the band, and he was also on the Pissed record, but we still had Mike Watson on bass. By 90, by the end of 90, by the middle of 90, by the end of 94, we had started writing some things that were very strange. And we were, once again, it's like, well, you know what? We're not on a major label anymore. We're not writing for anybody anyway. Let's record the songs that we're feeling. And it came out to where some of the stuff was faster and weirder and, you know, lower tunings and a little dirgy and almost like played sloppily on purpose and had this weird, you know, undertow to it. Could have been because of the popularity of the Seattle movement, or could it be that we broke out our old Black Sabbath records, which in turn, see what I'm saying? There's a mixed match of what you want to believe the media is pulling and tugging and throwing rock and roll fans. I think that the radio was, you know, Alice in Chains is a great example that they have a lot of really beautiful vocal harmonies going on between Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell throughout the band's career, part of their sound, but real basic chord progressions and things, but this dark undertow, and that was popular on the radio with Soundgarden as well as, you know, that stuff. And so yeah, Nirvana was not doing anything really different than that. Maybe that had some push and pull on the Dangerous Toys guys, and maybe it was because we had lost a couple of original materials, original members, that the materials that we had, the riffs that we had, were becoming darker because maybe I was writing more, because Paul was writing more, because Scott was, you know, getting into different styles as well. Who knows? But the reason that we called the record the artist formerly known as Dangerous Toys is because of that loss of original members and the push and pull of the climate of rock and roll. And we took a chance and we're writing songs because we're heavily into vulgar display of power and heavily into dirt.
So with your legacy firmly solidified after fronting and being involved with so many different metal bands over the years and being a constant force in the Texas metal scene and the American metal scene, what would you say your goals for the future would be?
I don't want to do anything else but rock out. So till I just physically can't sing or play or write and record and tour, I don't see that happening. You know, I don't have any money. You know, I'm broke. I'm a broke, starving musician. So there's that as well. So as long as the universe can provide me with the minimalistic tools I need to continue just playing, writing, and recording and touring music of any kind, I'll do it until I just can't walk anymore. That's my future.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk metal today, Jason. Any last words for your fans watching at home before we wrap this up?
No, just support music. Support, it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. Support art. Support anything underground that talks to you. Don't listen to the songs in the elevator. Listen to the songs that speak to you. The rest of it should be easy to ignore.